In this box is the least expensive football boot I have ever reviewed on this YouTube channel, coming in at a whopping 35 US dollars. This is an Indonesian brand called Enkai, and let's jump into the review. Now, this is the Lightning Bolt. I've also reviewed the Lightning Copa, both of which retail for under 40 US dollars. Obviously, with the exchange rate, it's over 500,000 Indonesian rupiah. Full disclosure here is that video, the Copa and this Bolt colorway, have both been sent to me by Enkai. They do not get to review this video. I'm not being paid for this review either, so when a brand sends me a pair of boots, I basically preface it as, I'm happy to take a look at them, and if I want to review them, I will. If not, then sorry, you don't get a review on the channel. That's just how it works. They will not get to view this video before you guys do and when it uploads on YouTube, nor do they get any feedback on the way that this review goes. So here we go with the unboxing. So as I said before, this is Enkai, ENKIA, and it's an Indonesian brand that sells boots for really, really ridiculously low prices. This is a US 9, UK 8, and a Euro 42 called the Lightning Bolt in a Caribbean colorway. So it's going to be very, very interesting. I'm sure a pretty cool colorway. And here we go. Oh yeah, very bright, very bold. And if I'm, ooh, interesting. Okay, this material actually feels not that different than Hybrid Touch, if I'm honest. It's got kind of that same elasticity to it. This is interesting. Same sole plate as the Lightning Copa as well. It definitely does feel more expensive than 35 US dollars, but it doesn't feel necessarily incredibly premium, which again, I don't think they're necessarily going for, because with that price point, it's pretty clear that this is a boot that's made for kind of budget friendly. So let's get this other one out of the box. This is obviously also the synthetic model between the two Lightning series. So you have the Lightning Copa, obviously, and then the Lightning Bolt, which is this one, and we're going to go through some tech specs as well. So these retail even less expensive than the Lightning Copa. These are 539,000 Indonesian rupiah, which is roughly 32 to 35 US dollars. Now, you have what's called Enkai Z Touch or Z Touch, which is the 3D textured material in the kind of these Z patterns, which is actually raised off of this synthetic upper, so you can actually get a little bit of texturing if you feel it kind of with your finger or your thumb. It's definitely the same type of material as the upper itself, so it's not, I imagine, going to be actual grip on the ball. It'll be more kind of like ridges and stuff that'll give you a little bit of extra ping, similar to, say, like a Phantom Ultra has those little extra ridge, those little bubbles that are sort of similar to the material of the actual upper itself. Hypervenom Phantom 3 is very similar. It's got those kind of pressure pods or air pods that sit on the upper just to give it a little bit of extra pinginess. That's kind of what this reminds me of. Obviously, it's a little bit different than that, but yeah, so that's that, the Z Touch, which is that 3D textured material. You also have the MICROGRIP, which is a micro-perforated heel pad. And I said this on the Lightning Copa video as well, but this is a heel that looks pretty big, if I'm honest. I would hope for maybe something a little bit tighter, just from the standpoint of comfort and stuff. Obviously, haven't tried either of these boots on because I literally just got done reviewing the Lightning Copa on the unboxing portion of the video, and then I obviously take all of them out to the field and do them kind of back to back. But this is the type of open area heel that I worry about that Nike sometimes plays a little bit of Russian roulette with. And it's a heel area that's very neutral. It's going to fit probably a lot of people, but it's not going to fit a lot of people really well. And that's sort of the trade-off you make for making a little bit more of a neutral material. Then you have the elastic weave, which is their knit material, basically here through the lacing system area, and then just a little bit that's stitched to the outside of the collar. It's not going to make any difference to the fit and the feel of the boot, other than to potentially make it feel a little bit more seamless on the ankle area. Other boots that have this type of kind of knit material around the sock, you think of the Skechers Razor, you think of the Puma Ultra, all of those types of boots, it really doesn't make all that much of a difference. It just kind of adds to the flow effect of the visuals of the football boot. which is an interesting one. And then you have the Thunder Trax, which is their sole plate. You've got some conical studs here in the forefoot, and then you've got 5 chevron studs in this midfoot area, and then 2 more conical studs in the heel. Now, I did comment in the other video about how I'm interested to see what this is going to perform like on pitch. Obviously, the Lightning Copa will come out before this one, but I am interested to see if we can still get some of the benefits of chevron stud traction with some of the pivot of that neutral conical stud pattern. So in the forefoot, as you put the boot down and you're pivoting back and forth, this is a situation where, okay, if I'm putting it into the ground or I'm going side to side, I get that benefit of this type of stud pattern here. So a very interesting stud pattern. This is also a sole plate that's going to basically bend in half, but again, it's stiffer than other $35 football boots that I've seen in Ross and other kind of and other places as well that are more takedown models from some of the bigger brands. It's a TPU outsole, and they say this is like an AG/FG football boot, so we'll test it on AG, see if it's too aggressive with these chevron studs, and go from there. They also have a very, very thick PU foam, like open cell PU foam insole, so it's a lot thicker than most other brands on the market. This is hopefully to give you a little bit of extra padding because the sole plate isn't as snappy or as supported as other brands on the market. Now, it could just be generally for kind of the general comfort of the football boot, but when you press your finger down inside on the insole, it does feel like a memory foam material, which is pretty nice. So my hope is that when we're out on a little bit rougher or harder AG surface, this will perform pretty well. Overall though, the synthetic upper feels pretty decent actually. I'm not too worried with that. It feels pretty soft. The midfoot feels a little bit stiffer for sure. You can see on the inside there's like a internal suede cage that goes kind of in this section in the midfoot area. So that's a pretty standard thing across really all synthetic models at this point in this day and age, just for that internal support cage for lateral stability. I am interested to see how the sizing is like. This does have a reasonable amount of volume to it. There is quite a bit of flexibility through that forefoot area. And I think from a fit perspective, these could be pretty decent, or they could be really, really poor, but let's go out to the pitch and see how they perform. This is the Lightning Bolt, which I'm interested by. It's a very inexpensive football boot, so I always have to sort of remind myself the context of this is, anything less than $40 is ridiculous. Like that's crazy, crazy, crazy. Like you can't even find old takedown models for that much. So that's $40 is what it costs me to ship a pair of football boots to America from Australia. That's the context, right? So that's just the shipping cost is the cost of this boot. So that's the context. Let's jump out on pitch and see how the Lightning Bolt actually performs. All right, guys, welcome to the pitch with the Lightning Bolt. Just got done reviewing the Copa, and I was very, very impressed with how those ended up fitting given their price point. Now, these are a textile-based kind of synthetic material. Very, very nice. Again, these run about a half a size big, so I would probably go half a size down if I were to get like the most accurate fit. But for the sake of this review, this will be fine. I think some of the things that I'm nervous about with these are going to be, one, the ability for the upper to kind of mold around my foot because they are a synthetic material. They do feel pretty good already. That's not bad for a boot that's like $35 US, which is nuts because I never, and I say never, but I really tend not to enjoy reviewing boots like this just because they are usually not all that impressive. And if I've got limited time, I'd like to kind of explore what the brands have to offer from a tech perspective. Now, one of the things that I am nervous about with these are kind of the heel area is really the big one because they do feel pretty open. And I know gapey is not the right word. That's sort of a gross word, but that's a little bit how it feels. And then you also, I don't know if you can zoom in here, but there's like a very decent amount of space
right there. The problem is that because it's a knit material, you're not going to be able to get any more pull through that part of the boot. And so I just hope that it doesn't affect the performance all that much. But overall, again, the context of this review is that this boot is 35 bucks. So honestly, straight away, the sole plate feels more responsive with this type of upper compared to the Lightning Copa, because the Lightning Copa is leather. It does have a little bit more flexibility to it, whereas this kind of knit synthetic material doesn't have as much stretch. And I think even despite that, these feel pretty cheap, if I'm honest. I'm not sure I'm gonna enjoy wearing these, but let's get on with the review. I think with inexpensively made boots like this, synthetics are a little bit harder to do than leather, if I'm honest. And I know you might be screaming at me like, what are you talking about? Like, cheap leather is always worse. I disagree. I think that if you take care of a cheap leather boot like you would a premium leather boot, then you're not gonna have as many issues compared to a synthetic that you can't really do much with. If I'm honest, these feel pretty disconnected and pretty sloppy. So I don't know how much more I'm gonna do of the review. And that's not necessarily a slight on Enkai. It's just this compared to the Lightning Copa. Like, Lightning Copa I'm gonna pick every day, all day, already. And the knit synthetic, like the synthetic material, feels fine, it feels okay, but it feels pretty, like it doesn't really wrap your foot all that well. And that in combination with a fit that's a little bit too big is just not ideal. So we're gonna jump into some shooting and then kind of wrap it up, I think, because I just like, these are gonna cause me a bunch of blisters and stuff. Do I think it's a poor product? Not necessarily, but again, if you look at the way that it fits, they fit okay, but there's just crazy amount of bulging here. And also from a sizing perspective, this is where we're at, right? That's way too much room for me. I like my boots to fit a lot more snug than this. So again, a cheap synthetic is gonna be worse in my opinion than like an inexpensively made leather boot. Like, I'm pointing over there because the Lightning Copa's behind the camera. Like, those feel more premium to me. And that whole video, I was like, they're only $40, that's crazy. These are like, they feel like a $35 pair of football boots. All right, here we go. A little bit of shooting and see kind of how these perform. Lateral lockdown is pretty poor. And striking feels okay. It's pretty disconnected, but again, $35. And that's what they feel like. This, I gotta be honest with you, and again, this is absolutely zero slight to Enkai, because I think the Indonesian brands often sell stuff for less expensive than like American or European brands. And definitely Asian brands, or definitely Japanese brands for the most part. So, you know, no fault to Enkai, but it's like the price point is definitely suggestive of the playing experience and the quality, which is like not great. All right, little free kick action. Let's really hope that these balls don't start rolling everywhere. God, this wind is really pissing me off. I'm actually gonna call it early today with filming, because the wind is gonna cause me a freaking nightmare. And it's gonna cause Kelvin a nightmare, so. Yeah, I think if you are on the market for something that is mega, like one of the most affordable boots you can buy, this is definitely an option that I would consider. Just go half a size down. They'll fit probably most people. I think you'll have a little bit of issue with break-in time. That was a nice free kick. If you have super wide feet, but I think for most people, these should fit fine. The only thing that I would say, again, with the context of it being 35 US dollars or thereabouts, the heel area is almost Puma Future 8 Ultimate vibe. Like, it's just too open. I'm getting all sorts of slippage happening. All right, finishing off with, of course, tradition. Here we go. Oof, I heard a ding. Yeah, that was just lazy. All right, let's jump into the conclusion. All right, guys, that is going to wrap up today's video of the Enkai Lightning Bolt. Is it a boot that I will ever wear again? No. Is it a boot that I think if you have $35 to spend and you want something that's kind of fun and unique and interesting? Yeah. Specifically if you have an average width foot and you have a pretty wide heel area. Those, I would say, hey, no problem, 35 bucks, dude, pick up a pair of these. These are cool. That being said, the Lightning Copa exists, which is, in my opinion, an objectively better football boot. Now, will you get more lockdown with a boot like this? Yeah. That being said, I don't think inexpensive synthetics are good. If it's leather of any quality, in my opinion, it's just going to be more comfortable. It's going to mold to your foot better than a cheap synthetic. That's the case with Nike boots forever. That's the case with Adidas boots forever, Puma boots forever. Always, always, always a cheap natural leather, like a real leather, is going to be better than a cheap synthetic. So where do I stand on these? I'm never going to wear them again. I think they're fine. I think they're actually half decent for the price point. But I think there's a longer conversation about why I don't review boots like this. And I know a lot of you guys out there aren't buying elite model boots. You're buying the pro model or you're the academy model and stuff like that. But as a person who has a consulting business, you can call me elitist if you want. You can call me whatever name you want. But this is my YouTube channel. And it's what I choose to bring to the market is the top end boots, because I'm a tech nerd and I want to talk about what the top tech has to offer. And I think, although this is one of the sort of quote unquote top boots from Enkai, I think this is where sort of my interest in unique and different brands sort of really slows down, which is, okay, a brand like TLSS or a brand like Adler, very small production batches. TLSS obviously has a lot more infrastructure because they've been around for not that long, but they've got all sorts of, like, they were in product distribution and stuff before that point. A brand like TLSS is using unbelievable products to make their football boots and their materials, I guess, to make their products. And so it makes complete sense for me to review something like that, even though it's a small brand. But the small brands like Enkai, I don't know. It's hard because I want to bring you guys interesting and fun new boots, but I thoroughly don't enjoy stuff like this that just like isn't gonna do anything for anybody. So I don't know. If you're gonna buy an Enkai boot, get the Lightning Copa. It's actually decent. And it's actually freaking cool for 40 bucks. That being said, for me personally, this is a pair of football boots that I'm super glad I got to review these, and I think it's cool that Enkai is coming up with all sorts of different names for their materials and all that stuff. But I do want them, I think it's possible to raise the bar. And I think for this price point, you got to make the heel better. And if you make the heel better and then everybody knows to go half a size down, I think then this becomes a totally different conversation. Because I think this becomes a boot that's, yeah, there's nothing to the sole plate, and it's, you know, the material's pretty thick given how actually it's it feels half decent to me. It's one of those things where kind of have to evaluate, like, all right, maybe it's not where it needs to be. So I don't know. That's my thoughts. Again, maybe I'm a snob, but I really don't give a shit because that's just who I am. And I really like talking top end tech with people. And for my consulting business, like I talk to brands about their top end models. I'm not reviewing like their takedown stuff, and I'm not doing play testing and all my prototype testing on takedown models. So something like this is probably, well, something like this isn't of my interest unless this gets a lot better. But again, for $35, like it's all with the caveat that like for $35, these are not bad, not bad. Hope you guys enjoyed that video. If you did, hit that like button, subscribe to the channel if you haven't already. As always, be awesome. Take care. See y'all in the next video.